You pull up to an incredible mansion in the heart of Surrey, its massive estate exuding nothing but luxury. The roar of a Lamborghini engine fills the air as you step out, greeted by a grand entrance that screams royalty. Inside, the walls are decked out with priceless artwork, diamond-encrusted watches sparkle in the light, and every room tells a story of success, power, and a legacy that feels untouchable. Welcome to the world of Prince Naseem Hamed, a boxing legend, a showman, and an icon. His journey from the rough streets of Sheffield to becoming a global superstar is one for the history books. But behind all the fame and fortune lies a story of raw talent, sheer ambition, and a career that totally changed boxing. Before we jump into this incredible tale, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a deep dive into the lives of boxing's greatest champions. Born on February 12, 1974 in Sheffield, England, Naseem Hamed came from humble beginnings. The son of Yemeni immigrants who moved to the UK for a better life, he grew up in a working-class family with 8 siblings. Life in Sheffield wasn't all glitz and glamour, but it was here, in the heart of a tough blue-collar city, that Nas developed the hunger and drive that would turn him into one of the most electrifying fighters in boxing history. From a young age, Nas had this undeniable presence. He walked with a certain swagger that some might call cocky, but behind that attitude was a raw, natural talent that couldn't be ignored. His parents worked tirelessly to provide for their large family, teaching him the values of hard work and perseverance. While most kids his age were dreaming about football or other sports, Nas had just one focus: boxing. And then fate stepped in. At just 7 years old, Nas walked into the Winco Bank gym in Sheffield for the first time. It wasn't a fancy place, but it was a breeding ground for champions. Brendan Ingle, a legendary boxing trainer, saw something special in the energetic, fast-reflexed boy. Ingle didn't just see a fighter, he saw a future superstar. The Winco Bank gym wasn't your typical training facility. It had its own unique, unorthodox approach, focusing on movement, reflexes, and unpredictability. This was the perfect fit for Nas, who already had an uncanny ability to dodge punches and counter with speed and power. Under Ingle's guidance, Nas developed a southpaw style that was completely different from anything boxing had seen before. He moved like a dancer, hands down, constantly changing angles, throwing punches from seemingly impossible positions, but landing them with pinpoint accuracy and knockout power. But it wasn't just about technique. Ingle also nurtured Nas's inner showman. He encouraged Nas to embrace his natural charisma and style, teaching him that winning wasn't just about the result, but the performance. Nas didn't just want to win, he wanted to entertain. And from an early age, it was clear he was meant for something far bigger than local tournaments. As an amateur, Nas quickly built a reputation for his explosive power and unmatched confidence. He won national titles with ease, often knocking out his opponents in the early rounds. His style was nothing short of mesmerizing. Fans either loved him or hated him, but one thing was for sure: no one could look away. By the time he was 18, Naseem Hamed had already outgrown the amateur scene, and the professional stage was calling. In 1992, Nas made the jump to the pros, signing with Frank Warren, one of the biggest boxing promoters in Britain. It didn't take long for people to notice this young featherweight with an attitude bigger than his weight class. His debut was explosive. He knocked out his opponent in the second round, leaving everyone in awe. From that moment on, it was clear this wasn't just another fighter. Hamed tore through his early opponents with ease, knocking them out with a combination of speed, power, and showmanship that had never been seen before in the featherweight division. His hands were down by his waist, his moves unpredictable, and his punching power unstoppable. He was knocking opponents out with single punches, sometimes while moving backwards. His opponents were clueless, and the fans, they couldn't get enough. But what truly made Hamed stand out wasn't just his power or his speed, it was his confidence. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to put on a show. Trash talk, he was a pro. Taunting his opponents, he was the king. And the craziest part? He backed it all up in the ring. His entrances became legendary, somersaulting over the ropes, dancing his way to the ring and basking in the roar of the crowd. This was more than boxing, this was a performance. By 1994, just 2 years into his pro career, Nas had already captured the European bantamweight title. But he wasn't stopping there. With his knockout streak, electrifying performances, and growing fan base, it was clear that the world stage was calling. His time to challenge for a world championship was coming. And when that moment came, Naseem Hamed made sure no one would ever forget his name. By 1995, he had already built a reputation as one of the most exciting prospects in boxing. His confidence was sky high, his knockout power was undeniable, and his unique style made him a fan favorite. Now, it was time to prove he wasn't just a showman, he was a world-class fighter. On September 30th, 1995, he stepped into the ring to face Steve Robinson for the WBO featherweight title. Robinson was a tough, seasoned champ, known for his resilience, but on that night in Cardiff, he was no match for the electric force that was Naseem Hamed. From the opening bell, Hamed dazzled the crowd with his reflexes and devastating counterpunches. Robinson tried to fight back, but by the 8th round, Hamed's power was too much to handle. A brutal left hook sent Robinson crashing to the canvas, and just like that, Nas was a world champion. It was more than just a win, it was a statement. Hamed had arrived, and he wasn't here to play. With the WBO title around his waist, he went on a reign of destruction. Opponents fell one after the other, all victims of his knockout power. He was like a magician in the ring, dancing, taunting, throwing punches from wild angles and landing them with surgical precision. His unorthodox style frustrated rivals, but no one could figure out how to stop him. In 1997, Nas proved he was more than just a one-belt champion when he took on IBF featherweight champ Tom Boom Boom Johnson. Johnson was an experienced fighter, having defended his title multiple times, but against Hamed, he looked outclassed. Nas toyed with him, showing off his dazzling speed and footwork before unleashing a deadly combination that ended the fight in the 8th round. With that victory, Hamed became a unified world champion. That same year, he continued his reign, knocking out Juan Gerardo Cabrera and defending his WBO title against Jose Badu. In his hometown of Sheffield, the British fans were totally behind him, but now it was time for Naseem Hamed to take his stardom to the biggest stage of them all, America. On December 19, 1997, he made his U.S. debut at the legendary Madison Square Garden, facing off against former WBC featherweight champion Kevin Kelly. The fight turned out to be one of the most thrilling in boxing history. From the very first round, it was pure chaos. Hamed was knocked down in the first round, but then he came back to drop Kelly in the second. Kelly returned the favor in the fourth, and for a moment it looked like Hamed might suffer his first defeat. But true to his Prince Naseem style, he bounced back, landed a massive left hand, and knocked Kelly out cold. It was an instant classic and secured Hamed's place as a global superstar. American fans were hooked by his flashy entrances, cocky interviews, and insane power. HBO quickly signed him to a multi-fight deal, and from that point on, Hamed was a household name worldwide. But it wasn't just his fighting that made him a legend, it was the way he carried himself. Hamed didn't just walk to the ring, he made an entrance. Whether it was arriving on a flying carpet, recreating Michael Jackson's Thriller dance, or backflipping over the ropes, he turned every fight into a spectacle. His showmanship was second to none, and whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't take your eyes off him. As his career progressed, Hamed continued to dominate. He faced former world champion Wilfredo Vasquez and knocked him out. He fought Wayne McCulloch, a relentless pressure fighter, and outboxed him over 12 rounds to retain his title. Then, in 1999, he added another belt to his collection, defeating Cesar Soto to capture the WBC featherweight title. However, he later vacated the WBC belt to continue defending his WBO championship, the title he'd held longer than any other. Hamed's greatness was officially recognized in 2019 when Ring Magazine awarded him their featherweight championship retroactively, making him the only fighter in history to receive this honor post-career. For nearly 6 years, Hamed ruled the featherweight division, winning 15 world title fights and knocking out nearly everyone who dared to step into the ring with him. He brought a level of excitement to boxing that hadn't been seen in decades. He wasn't just a fighter, he was an entertainer, a phenomenon, and a legend in the making. But as dominant as he was, every reign eventually comes to an end. And for Naseem Hamed, the toughest test of his career was just around the corner. By 2001, Prince Naseem Hamed was on top of the boxing world, undefeated, flamboyant, and feared. He had dominated the featherweight division for almost 6 years with an 84% knockout ratio and 15 world title defenses. His aura of invincibility seemed untouchable, but every great fighter eventually faces a moment of reckoning. And for Hamed, that moment came on April 7th, 2001, against Marco Antonio Barrera. Barrera was a seasoned Mexican warrior, a technically brilliant boxer with a relentless fighting spirit. Many believed Hamed's power and unpredictable style would be too much for him, but Barrera came prepared. He had studied Hamed's weaknesses, and when the bell rang at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Barrera executed his game plan to perfection. From the very first round, it was clear that this was not the same dominant Naseem Hamed fans were used to seeing. His signature swagger and supreme confidence were still there, but something was off. His footwork wasn't as sharp, his punches lacked their usual snap, and most importantly, his opponent wasn't intimidated. Barrera controlled the fight from start to finish. Instead of engaging in wild exchanges, he stayed disciplined, countering Hamed's lunging attacks with precise combinations. He exposed the flaws in Hamed's defensive style, landing clean shots every time Hamed dropped his hands. By the later rounds, frustration was clear on Hamed's face. His usual magic wasn't working, and Marco Antonio Barrera wasn't backing down. In the 12th round, Barrera made a bold statement by trapping Hamed in a corner and slamming him into the turnbuckle, a moment that showed just how dominant he had been. When the final bell rang, there was no question who the winner was. Barrera took the unanimous decision, and just like that, Naseem Hamed's undefeated streak was over. The loss was a massive blow for a fighter whose entire career had been built on showmanship and unshakable self-belief. The idea of being outclassed was almost unthinkable. Hamed didn't make excuses, though. He admitted Barrera was the better man that night, but deep down, something changed.
The guy boxed well, he boxed as best as he could, which paid off. He used his boxing skills.
The fire that had driven his rise to superstardom seemed to fade. Hamed took a year off from boxing before making his comeback in May 2002 against Manuel Calvo for the IBO featherweight title. Fans were expecting a redemption fight, a spectacular knockout to prove he was still the electrifying force he once was. But what they saw was a different Hamed. The fight against Calvo was uninspiring. Hamed won by unanimous decision, but gone were the dazzling movements, the lightning-fast counters, and the raw energy that had made him a global superstar. He looked slower, less explosive, and, for the first time, ordinary. The once-hyped prince had become a shadow of his former self. Although Hamed hinted at a quick return, it never came. The truth was that years of training and fighting had taken a toll on his body. Chronic hand injuries, which had plagued him for much of his career, had worsened. Multiple fractures and surgeries had weakened his once dynamic punching power. Without that edge, Hamed knew he couldn't perform at the level he once did. At just 28 years old, Prince Naseem Hamed walked away from boxing for good. There was no official retirement announcement, no farewell fight. He simply disappeared from the boxing world. For a fighter who had once lived in the spotlight, his exit was surprisingly quiet. Despite his sudden departure, Hamed's impact on boxing remained undeniable. He had changed the sport with his showmanship, his unique fighting style, and his fearless personality. Though his reign ended abruptly, his legacy as one of the most exciting fighters of all time was already secured. Hamed's fall from dominance wasn't a long decline. It was a single night that changed everything. And while he may not have ended his career on the terms he wanted, the legend of Prince Naseem Hamed will never be forgotten. Even after hanging up his gloves, Naseem Hamed's impact on boxing never faded. In 2015, he received one of the sport's highest honors, an induction into the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
With devastating power and blinding speed, he won the featherweight championship of the world, Prince Naseem Hamed.
This recognition solidified his place among the greatest fighters of all time and was a testament to the mark he left on the featherweight division and beyond. Hamed wasn't just a champion, he was a revolution in the sport. His style and personality redefined what it meant to be an entertainer in the ring. His influence stretched far beyond his own career. For many young British Asian fighters, Hamed was a trailblazer. He shattered barriers, showing that a kid from an immigrant background could rise to the top and dominate the sport. Fighters like Amir Khan have credited Hamed as a major inspiration, and his flashy, showboating style can still be seen in many boxers today. But Hamed wasn't just an inspiration for future champions. He was also a pop culture icon in the 1990s. His name was as recognizable as any mainstream celebrity in Britain. His fights weren't just sporting events, they were blockbuster attractions. His confidence, charisma, and explosive performances made him a must-watch athlete, elevating boxing into the entertainment sphere. Even today, clips of his wild knockouts and theatrical ring entrances continue to circulate on social media, keeping his legend alive for new generations of fans. Outside the ring, Hamed lived as flamboyantly as he fought. His success brought him immense wealth, and he spent it in style. One of his most famous properties was a stunning 10-bedroom mansion in Yorkshire, which he later sold for £2.35 million. The estate was the epitome of luxury, featuring an oak-paneled reception hall, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a fully equipped leisure complex with a swimming pool, jacuzzi, gym, and even a games room. Today, Naseem Hamed lives in a lavish mansion in Surrey, continuing to enjoy the fruits of his labor in true Prince Naseem style. His love for luxury extended beyond just real estate. His car collection was equally extravagant. Hamed had a particular taste for high-performance supercars, and one of his prized possessions was a Lamborghini Murcielago, a powerful machine that perfectly matched his bold personality. He also owned a Ferrari 360 Spider, a sleek and stylish masterpiece, as well as a Rolls-Royce Phantom, the ultimate symbol of success. But his garage wasn't just full of exotic supercars. Hamed also had a rare Subaru Impreza 22 BSTI, often called the Subaru from Hell, along with a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, a rugged yet elite SUV. His love for luxury didn't stop with cars and homes. Hamed was known for his collection of diamond-encrusted jewelry, including flashy rings and custom chains that screamed his larger-than-life persona. His watch collection was just as impressive, featuring high-end brands like Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet. Each timepiece was a statement of his success. Designer fashion was another one of Hamed's passions. He was regularly seen wearing the finest tailored suits and premium streetwear brands, fully embracing his role as a style icon. By 1997, his earnings had skyrocketed to $14 million per year, making him one of the highest-paid athletes in the world. By 1999, his net worth had reached 38 million pounds, and by 2001, it had grown to an astonishing $75.7 million. Over the course of his career, Hamed earned over $48.5 million in fight purses alone, with his highly publicized bout against Marco Antonio Barrera bringing in $8.5 million. At his peak, he was the second richest British boxer, trailing only heavyweight legend Lennox Lewis. Even after retirement, Hamed's fortune remained intact, and his luxurious lifestyle showed no signs of slowing down. While many fighters struggle financially after retiring, Hamed was as strategic with his money as he was in the ring. Despite his flamboyant public image, he's always been deeply rooted in family and faith. In 1998, he married Elisha Elphinstone in his hometown of Sheffield. Elisha, who converted to Islam, has been a strong and supportive presence throughout his career and beyond. She also built her own success as a businesswoman, running a thriving beauty salon. Their marriage has stood the test of time, which is rare in the world of celebrity athletes. Together, they've raised two sons, Adam and Sami, both of whom have inherited their father's passion for boxing. The boys train at the legendary Winco Bank Gym, where Naseem himself honed the skills that made him a world champion. Adam, in particular, has shown great promise in the ring, and fans are eager to see if he will follow in his father's footsteps and carry on the Hamed legacy. Faith has always played a central role in Naseem Hamed's life. A devout Muslim, he was known for reciting the Takbir, Allahu Akbar, before his fights.
Allahu Akbar! Allah is the greatest!
A gesture that resonated deeply with many of his fans. Even after retirement, he remains committed to his religious beliefs, often speaking about the importance of faith, family, and discipline. Hamed has continued to give back, supporting various charitable causes, especially those focused on youth and sports development. His journey from the streets of Sheffield to global superstardom serves as a lasting inspiration, not just for boxers, but for anyone striving to achieve greatness. From the bright lights of Madison Square Garden to the luxury of his Surrey mansion, the story of Prince Naseem Hamed is one of ambition, success, and an unshakable belief in his own greatness. Whether you loved him or hated him, one thing is undeniable: boxing has never seen another fighter quite like him.